All right, we're back here for episode 8 of The Breakdown. Brandon Warren joined in studio. We're at the South Side Studio, South Minneapolis, for the Alive and Social Network by Twins right-hander Cole DeVries. Cole, how are we doing? Former Twins. I'm sorry, I don't mean to throw that out there. I said it and then I realized I was a little bit off, but how are we doing?
Good, and I'm guessing that everyone who's listening to this realizes that I am not currently playing for them, so...
Well, you probably wouldn't be here. Twins are between two series. Left Kansas City last night on their way to Chicago. Any fond memories of Kansas City? I think you told me you got your first big league win in Kansas City. Did you not?
Yeah, I did. That was probably one of my I'd say most favorite stadiums to play in. Was Kansas City, and then also where we stayed, the hotel we stayed at, the Intercontinental, right by, I don't know if they still do, right by the Country Club district area. I don't remember what they call it, and so it was great. There's a ton of shops there, a lot of good restaurants, so it's one of my more favorite places.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, like you said, first big league win for you. Obviously, a very memorable thing too, and a good series for the Twins, taking 2 out of 3 from the first place Royals. Again, not really chasing the Royals so much as they are just trying to keep pace with teams around them in the wild card race. Going into Chicago should be beneficial for the Twins, although they do face Jose Quintana, somebody you face in the big leagues.
Yep.
Chris Sale, who fortunately you did not because he's ridiculous.
But the Twins always do so well against
Doesn't
him.
make any sense.
No, not at all.
And then they were slated to face John Danks, which they would have loved. Career ERA of like 5-something against the Twins. This year it's like 9.39. They've just obliterated him, but I believe he's been bumped in favor of another lefty in Eric Johnson. But before we get to that, before we get to the state of the Twins, I got to ask you, did you make it out to the state fair?
I did.
And did you? What did you have to eat? Everybody has to know what you had to eat. I think I saw a picture with Pronto Pups.
Yep.
Did you stay on that diet? Stay on the narrow, the straight and narrow, or did you kind of veer off there a little bit?
No. If you go to the state fair, you got to blow it out.
I thought you were going to say state penitentiary for a second there.
Either one.
Yeah, there you go.
Never mind.
Yeah, there you go.
No, so yeah, I had to do the corn dog Pronto Pup challenge.
I thought the Pronto Pup is overrated.
Well, so I always thought that I liked the Pronto Pup better until I had both of them bite for bite, and I liked the corn dog better.
Oh, they had a challenge which you liked better.
Yes.
I didn't know that. Okay, so because I saw the picture, and I'm assuming it was with your better half.
Yes.
And I didn't know if you each had a Pronto Pup or what you had, but I had a Pronto Pup for the first time. And, again, corn dogs are fine. It's not one of the first 50 things I'd eat if you gave me a choice, but sure, they're great.
So do you know the difference between the two?
No.
So corn dog is the batter's made with cornmeal or corn-based. Pronto Pup, the batter is like a pancake batter or something similar to that. So it's a little lighter, a little sweeter, or that's what they say. But I thought the corn dog tasted a little sweeter. So I don't know. It was
stands to reason. I thought it's doing nothing for me. We ended up going and getting beyond that cheese curds.
Yep, did that.
And then we ended up with cookies, which again, a terrible idea. But there was no line. And so the guy next to us in line at Sweet Martha's goes up there and he's like, "Could I just get a water, please?" I'm like, "Who does that? Who goes to that booth and gets just a water?" My mind was totally blown.
That's unreal. What else did I get there? Did the corn dogs, cheese curds? I tried some of that liquid nitrogen ice cream for the first time,
and
I thought it was really good. It's super dense and hard, and then it melts really quick in your mouth.
So you were there Sunday, actually. So
yeah.
I must have just missed you or something because we were out there doing radio for Go Twins territory. I don't know if I'm allowed to say that on the air, but the other radio that I do on Sundays. And so it was funny. The guy that was in charge of giving us directions of how to get from where we were parking in the media lot to where we were stationed sent us on the complete other end of the state fairgrounds. When in fact, from the parking spot, we were like 100 yards to the right. So we walked all the way to the end, all the way back. I start texting Rod. I'm like, "Where do I have to be? We got 20 minutes till we're on the air," and I'm freaking out. If it's 20 minutes, you're at least on the grounds, you're probably okay. You're not trying to find somewhere to park and debacle like that. So so my state fair started off with me checking my Fitbit, doing 4,000 steps in that first 40 minutes.
I also had a pretzel wrapped corn dog.
I saw that, but I didn't get a chance to indulge.
Pretty good.
So, Aaron, did you make it out to the state fair at all?
I was out there for a little while. We did a show on Thursday.
What show did you guys do?
The MN Pubcast with Jason and Molly.
Oh, yeah, Jason, very good producer. Haven't had a chance to listen to the Pubcast yet, but sounds like an interesting show. Sounds like they just kind of sit around, drink beer, and talk about like bar topics.
Yep, it was a good time. At the fair, there's a lot of wacky people to look at.
Oh, man, the people watching is the best. Anybody that stood out for you, people watching wise?
You know what? Honestly, I was very disappointed with the fair this year.
Me too. Usually, it was not nothing. There was one guy dressed up like the Joker, and he was showing people a sign that said "D's Nuts 16," and that's like, have you heard about that joke?
The presidential thing. Good job, buddy.
Yeah, and the guy's like got the thumbs up, and I'm like, yeah, keep moving.
No, the weirdos were not out in force like they usually are when I was at the fair. I don't know if it was day before last day kind of thing, like they'd already been over it, or it was pretty normal. I was kind of disappointed.
Crowds are ridiculous on Sunday. I'm sure they were worse on Monday as it came to a wrap. Not too busy over there right now, but it's just kind of amazing how many people congregate in that one area. I don't like crowds, so it's not really my jam. There's no question about that. But anyway, nobody's listening for that. They want to know what we think about the Twins. And did you catch the game last night? Catch any of it? I watched most of extra innings, and then I had to shut it down and go to bed. I just was wiped out. And so I brushed my teeth, got ready for bed, and I get a text from a friend of mine. He's talking about how many stolen bases have the Royals had, or is this the most stolen bases the Royals have had in a loss? I'm like, I guess the Twins must have come back or not come back, but pulled ahead and held it down. And Miguel Sano did what Miguel Sano does. Did you see the home run?
I did. That was, the guy just keeps on outdoing himself, if that's even possible at this point.
And I was critical. I have been critical a little bit about Paul Molitor recently, maybe more so just because I think he's good and I want so much to believe he's a good manager that when he does things I don't agree with, I kind of, and especially with bullpen usage, and maybe it's just because of like the level of man crush I have on a guy like Trevor May, where when he uses him in a way I don't appreciate, it kind of heightens my awareness. But to use Sano where he did, left-handed pitcher, he just mauls lefties, and Franklin Morales is, he's decent, but he's not great. That was brilliant, and I think to have that ace up your sleeve and to know when to use Sano, knowing you're only going to get one at bat out of him, it was brilliant. I don't know what you thought about that.
No, I thought perfect situation, perfect placement, and all the stars lined, and it led to a win. So there you go.
And a lot of people wanted him to hit for, I believe it was Suzuki or Buxton in that. I think it was the ninth inning. They had runners on, I want to say second and third. But the issue there, you can't hit Sano there because then he gets walked. And you've used your bullet on Miguel Sano to load the bases against is still one of the great Royals relievers. So it didn't make sense there. And eventually, actually, so Suzuki stays in the game. Herrera strikes him out with a 100-mile-an-hour head-high fastball. Nobody's going to touch that.
No shot.
And so, again, Herrera's nasty. He's probably going to strike anybody out anyway. But it led to a play with Kurt Suzuki and Blaine Boyer. Did you happen to see what happened there? It was...
Yeah, Boyer got a comebacker.
And it wasn't really very well hit. He had time to move to his left.
Yeah, and I think, didn't he kind of spin around and then made a brutal throw to home plate, which that's actually probably the hardest throw to make. And, pulled Suzuki up the line, and then I forgot who was coming home.
Gerard Dyson.
Okay, yeah, it was Dyson.
The second fastest guy on the Royals.
Yeah, and basically crashed into Suzuki right before he caught the ball, and it was in front of home plate, so he was obviously out, and it all worked out.
Well, and so the throw wasn't brutal just from a positioning standpoint, but from just it was just lobbed in there. It's like you forget
but it was up the line.
Yeah, and it veered. Yeah, it was almost like he threw just a wicked two-seamer.
Yeah,
from about 50 feet away, and yeah, it was terrible. It was like he wasn't really considering that it was Gerard Dyson running. And I said Dyson was the second fastest runner, only because Terrence Gore is a September call-up, and he's the one that stole second off of Suzuki, I think in the ninth inning. Ridiculous speed. He can't hit a lick, but he's the kind of guy in September that could swing a game for you, when you need one. But anyway, so Dyson's breaking for home plate, and the throw comes in, and so Suzuki gets just blasted, has to leave the game with I think they called it a bruise. I'm not sure they exactly know until the MRI results come back. But what annoyed me was they felt the need to review that as though maybe Suzuki was blocking the base path, and that Dyson was upset with that. And it was like, if they had come back and had ruled Dyson safe, not only would the game be over, but I think I'd have gone ballistic, not because of a rooting interest in the Twins. I've kind of moved beyond that as a media guy, but just like, that's not the spirit of the rule. He wasn't blocking the plate. He was trying to catch the baseball. And,
exactly.
The new rule is actually written where you can get the baseball if it's in the baseline because you kind of have to. But if they had come back and ruled that as him in the baseline, what would your reaction have been?
Well, I think mine probably would have been fairly similar to what Molly would have done and gone absolutely nuts. I mean, I'm not there, so it's kind of stupid for me to start going nuts in my house. But
right, that's true.
But
doesn't stop a lot of people, though.
No, and I probably just would have been sitting there shaking my head because, in order to make a play, you have to try and go catch the ball, and so sometimes you have to be in the base path, and it's the runner's job to get around you.
I like when Molitor gets mad because he reminds me of like a super fit grandpa. It's like he just goes out there and he goes nuts, and he reminds me of my grandpa from when I was a kid because like same build and. Again, looks super fit. He still looks like, aside from being his age, that he is basically at his playing weight or whatever.
Oh,
definitely. And so it's just amazing to see him like kind of truck out there, and he, he's not like Brad Ausmus. He's not like Mike Matheny, AJ Hinch, those catchers that are like 38 and managing or 40 and managing. But he still looks really young for his age. And I like when he runs out there and kind of mixes it up. And I have to wonder, he's, born again Christian guy, big on his faith. I wonder when he gets heated up, kind of like when Joe Mauer gets upset striking out on a called third strike, what exact words are exchanged in those sequences? Or like a Brian Dozier, where you can't really read his lips and you kind of wonder what those guys are saying.
My most favorite situation of a manager getting thrown out was one that happened in college, and I went to University of Minnesota. John Anderson is the head coach.
Pretty much
manager.
A legend, isn't he?
Yeah, definitely. And he is a really calm guy, but sometimes gets heated. And we were playing Cal State Fullerton.
Wow.
It was actually when Suzuki was on the team. It was my freshman year. I think Suzuki was a junior.
So he was on the cusp of going, I think he went like the second round of the draft.
Yeah, he did.
And he was insanely good, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, and he hit a massive home run off of my roommate at the time. Like, it cleared the scoreboard, literally.
Oh, wow.
So anyways, getting back to the story, bad calls were happening, this and that. And so John Anderson goes out and is talking to the ump, and he is literally talking to him like this. And I mean, let's just say the guy's name's Hal or whatever. He goes, you know what, Hal? I've been watching you for the last couple of days, and you're just not very good. But the problem in this situation is that you think that you are pretty good, and you think that you're making good calls. You're making terrible calls. And the ump goes, you know what, John, you just got personal. See you later. And it was just like, he didn't even raise his voice. He was calm. He did say one bad word, and then his response was, oh, I see how it is. The other side is throwing every 4-letter word at you, and nothing happens. But I come out here and try to talk to you like a man, and you throw me out of the game.
That's
he just turned around and walked away.
That's the unbelievable, like, quintessential ump show. I don't know if you've seen that hashtag. Keith Law of ESPN, the big prospect guy, does the hashtag ump show. It's when an umpire believes he's the third team on the field and is being part of the game. The fans paid to see them, and so they're kind of doing the peacock thing where just showing off. And that sounds like you're out here to see this umpire for sure. One thing I wanted to ask you about with the Suzuki play is a lot of times rules will come into play that are for the player's benefit, and sometimes I feel like the players have to think like, why is someone else deciding what's for my benefit? I play the game so I can stay healthy. I play the game my way. Do players kind of just laugh like incredulously when, there's a lot of fans with really strong opinions, especially sabermetric-based fans, like the kind of the crowd that I run with, where they think they know the rules that should be applied to players for their well-being. Do players just kind of like, wow, why does somebody else think they know better than my well-being than I do? Do players kind of think that's just ridiculous? So in that spirit, the rule at home plate, for instance.
I don't know. It's something that never really came up that much while I was playing ball, just because kind of when I was playing, the sabermetrics was just starting to get going. So there wasn't a lot of stuff that we had to deal with or knew about with it. And so, honestly, I don't really have much of a basis. But anytime that rules get made up where, like you're talking about, they're trying to dictate certain things with how we play or, what's safe for us. And unless it has a lot of validity to it where you can sit there and easily say, yeah, I could see how that's going to be safe for both parties. They are kind of ridiculous. And, there's some rules that we were kind of looking at come on.
There's two of them I have to ask you about, replay and catcher collisions. Where do you stand on each of them?
The replay, I like only when it benefits me. And
I think a lot of players feel that way.
Right. I do think the replay is kind of ridiculous just in the fact that baseball is a sport that was based on human error. And there should be some human error in it. I mean, you have so many umpires out there. And there's a lot of fine lines in baseball. And so that's why I don't really like that one per se. And then
it does open up too, though, where a play, like a continuation of a play, like say there's a ground ball double play say a ground ball to short, runner on first, and they flip to second. You get the out there, and the other guy doesn't keep running, and they throw to first to get him in case they miss the first play. Like, it feels like it adds an added element of like you have to continue a play after it's over, just in case the front end of it goes awry. Like, have you seen anything like that?
I was never part of anything like that, but it is kind of one of those situations where I think I was a part of some where the play went to review, and then the umpires kind of had to figure out where the base runners should be.
You have to basically, in your mind, figure out how it would have played out.
Yeah, and so I really don't like it for that aspect. And then the catcher collision one, I'm kind of on the fence with because I know a lot of people like seeing that, the collision at home plate and stuff, and it can really make the game kind of
freaking football fans.
Yeah, kind of exciting. But then I also saw, when I was in the minor leagues, a number of catchers and guys kind of getting helped off the field by other teammates because, there was an on-purpose collision at home plate. So
for me, if the rule could be applied evenly, that'd be fine. It's just that we haven't reached that point yet where it's just kind of ticky-tack. And, there was a time Joe Mauer went through, I think in Tampa Bay, and a catcher was blocking the plate, and there was no recourse there. But then there was a game, I think the first year that the rule existed, where the game ended on a play at the plate where the guy would have been clearly out, but since the catcher blocked the plate, they gave him the base or the plate, as it were. And it's like, well, that's not the spirit of the rule either. The plate needs to be close enough where the catcher blocking the plate matters.
Yeah.
And then you have to kind of start opening up the Pandora's box of, well, how close was the runner? How fast is the runner? Did the catcher have the ball? And I don't like it. Anyway, before we go into our first pause here, I did want to mention one thing too. Toronto and the Yankees playing today, starting a series. They play 7 times before the end of the season. How does that matter for the Twins? Let me tell you. Those are the two teams. One's going to win the East. One of them is going to be the wild card team, most likely number 1 wild card team, and host that playoff, one game playoff. So it's of interest to the Twins to keep an eye on it. Luis Severino, 21-year-old righty who throws absolute gas, nasty slider, nasty changeup. And oh, by the way, he's facing David Price tonight. So that's going to be an absolutely ridiculous matchup. If you got a chance to check it out on MLB.tv or whatever means legally, go ahead and do that, because that's going to be a preview of what the Twins might have to deal with in one way or the other if they can keep up and overtake the Rangers. So with that, that's going to wrap up the first segment. In the second segment, we are going to chat a little bit about minor leaguers and money. So join us for that.
Just when you thought it was safe to go back online, along comes this hit show.
Do you want to do this? I will do this.
Gaby, let's not battle our guests.
You're being nice.
Yeah. In a world full of hit shows, this one's the real deal.
I'm refusing to engage in an argument that doesn't exist.
I'm not arguing.
Twin Cities hit show.
Oh my god.
Oh my god. Hey,
see, this is how fights start on pedal pubs. This is exactly. He's just all that redheaded anger just came up. It's all in his chest right now.
The Twin Cities Hit Show airs live daily, 9:30 to 10:30 on the Alive and Social Network.
Oh, Shannon, welcome to my world.
The term foodie can sometimes come across as a tickle pretentious. BT and Lydia are here to demystify the term and reclaim it for the sake of good food. Their weekly podcast brings in fellow foodies and culture creators from the Twin Cities to talk about all things food. Find this duo only on the Alive and Social Network.
All right, we are back for the second segment. Nothing like a little classic Four Horsemen bringing us in. I got to choose the music for that segment. You got to choose the one for the third, so we'll leave people in suspense over that. I do have one thing to get to here. With the regular season starting tonight, you could start the season by winning $2 million in Week 1 at DraftKings.com, America's favorite one-week fantasy football site. It's the biggest fantasy football contest ever. $10 million in prizes are up for grabs, including $2 million for first place and $1 million for second. 1 week fantasy means no season-long commitments. It's fantasy football on demand. Play where you want, when you want, with the players you want. Just pick your players, pile up the points, and pick up your cash. That's it. You've never experienced football like this. Every game feels like the playoffs, even in Week 1. And every broken tackle or spectacular catch could take you closer to a $2 million prize. This isn't fantasy as usual. This is DraftKings. Welcome to the big time. Hurry to DraftKings.com now and use promo code SPREAKER to play for free for a shot at $2 million in the Week 1 Millionaire Maker. Enter SPREAKER for free entry now at DraftKings.com. That's DraftKings.com. And DraftKings.com has a lot of my money right now. Kind of hit the skids on that baseball that I've been playing. So moving on, anyway, speaking of money, I did want to bring up, I had read a couple things over the course of the season. Minor league seasons now have wrapped, with the exception in the Twin System of, I believe, Cedar Rapids and Chattanooga playing postseason ball. Something we had actually discussed, you had said, while there might be a little more pride in minor league titles, championships, a lot of the guys don't necessarily like to continue playing into September, and that kind of has a natural tie into what we're talking about in this segment here. So, okay, why don't you want to play for the Florida State League title if you're playing for Fort Myers in the heat of August? Why do you not want to keep playing into September exactly?
For me, it was always just something that there's no playoff bonus.
Right. In fact, there's the opposite of that.
Yeah, you're getting your regular pay, which if you're a typical minor leaguer, well, I should say just any minor leaguer based on the salary at those given levels, it's almost impossible to run an even spreadsheet of finances when you're in the minor leagues until you get to AAA and you're a free agent. Even with AAA minimum or AAA, kind of normal pay for outside the free agents, it's so difficult. And so you're basically paying money to play these extra games.
Yeah, a lot of guys end up, you have to pay for a hotel to stay, I believe. And
it all depends on how your lease is set up with the place that you're renting.
Sure.
That's 100% of what it depends on. And so it's kind of one of those things. It's like, why do I want to stay here and pay more money? Because I already paid money basically for the whole baseball season. Why do I want to pay money for these extra games? And that's really what it comes down to.
So you make it sound like payment gets better as you go up the ladder. Is that accurate, or is it pretty low on the low end and then just kind of like AAA it improves? How does that work exactly?
It's a slow increment going up. So, I can only go off of what it was when I was playing. I think low A was the first level that I started at. And when I started, pay there was $1,100 a month. Mm-hmm. And that is only for the 5 months of the baseball season.
So you're grossing 55, or not grossing, but it's $5,500 total pay.
Yeah.
Before you consider clubhouse dues, rent, anything. Now, did you have a host family?
No, I didn't. I had an apartment with actually Joe Benson and Alex Burnett.
Oh wow, a couple guys that ended up playing at least a little bit of big league ball. Actually, Burnett played, I think, 2 full seasons, and Benson had a cup of coffee and was actually a really highly regarded prospect who's still kicking around in the minors. So that's pretty interesting.
Yeah, so we had a place together. So no, I didn't have a host family. But even if you have a host family, it's only right. They want you to contribute money to groceries and stuff like that. Right. So you're still paying a couple $100 a month to live at someone else's house. I mean, it's just kind of weird. And it's at that level, I don't know how you can even begin to fathom of making any money at that level. And then I think my first year AAA payment or monthly payment was either like $2,000 or $2,300 a month. I think it was $2,300.
A little less than a big leaguer makes in a full day on the minimum salary.
Oh yeah, less. I mean, when I got called up my first time, or I should say my first year, I think I averaged it out and I was making about $2,700 a day. Mm-hmm. So I was making significantly less a month compared to what I was making a day in the big leagues.
And that's why it was a big deal for Jorge Polanco to get the call from AA Chattanooga just a couple times during the season. Was literally, he probably had 4 days of service time in the season, and that was nearly as much as he made the entire season probably playing for Chattanooga. I mean, he's probably got a 40-man split too, which you probably didn't really have. I don't think you weren't added to the 40-man in any real hurry, I don't think. Weren't you a 40-man kind of right when they needed you, or did you have a little bit of time ahead of time?
No, they took Jason Marquis off of the roster and put me on it. And so I was called up and on the roster immediately. And so kind of how those splits work, I think the money's a little bit more now. Mm-hmm. But if you get added to the roster and you're playing in the minor leagues, I want to say you start at, when it was like 36 or I think it was 42,000 a season. So significant increase.
Still not a crazy amount of money.
No, but significant increase from what other guys are making in the minor leagues. And then if you get called up and sent back down, then you go to second year 40-man money. And I believe when I was playing, that's like 64,000. So then another massive pay jump. Mm-hmm. And then for me, my second season in the big leagues, when I did get sent down, because I had made a significant amount of money the previous year, and it was more than that, 64,000, you go to a split, and you end up making, while you're in the minor leagues, 60% of what you made in the big leagues the year before. So, again, another significant increase. And so it's so weird. And getting back to the thing on why, my second year when I was in the big leagues, we made it to playoffs in Rochester. And I was so irritated. And the reason why is because I want to say that we made it decently far, and we played 10 games, or we were 10 days into postseason.
Did you guys play for the Governor's Cup that year?
I don't know. We didn't make it to the finals.
Right.
I think we lost in Game 7 against Pawtucket.
Okay.
And so, but there was 10 days in that time. In that 10 days, I missed out because I got called up. It was a September call up that year also. I lost out on, I think it was $20,000 or $25,000
big league salary because you were at AAA fighting for postseason rather than being up with the big league team.
And that's with subtracting the increased money that I was making in Rochester. So, I mean, just things like that go to show you why minor league postseason, some guys like it, but there's a lot of guys that really hate it. And I really think that teams need to do something to incentivize their players to make the postseason. Because outside of if you win, you get a ring or something. What's the incentive for a normal player to want to make playoffs when they know they're just going to be paying out more money? Or like my case, I ended up losing, $20,000-$25,000.
Yeah, that's insane, especially when you think of what you made up to that point. It's a lot more money than it seems like. You also mentioned the level jumps to make more money, low A, high A, double A. You got to keep in mind too, what is it? Probably 75% of players get lopped off at each level, or maybe not 75, maybe it's 50. But for every player that plays at low A, maybe 50% of those guys never play high A, and then up the rung. So it's not like you can view this as you go work at Apple or Google and you have a legitimate chance of making your way up, or 50% chance of being just outright fired. And maybe for aggressive companies, it's maybe close to that. But the fact of the matter is, a lot of those players don't really get the chance to progress even to the point of still earning well below poverty level.
Yeah, and the biggest thing that still sticks in my mind that the Twins say every year in spring training is each team that you're on, and they're more talking to the lower level guys. Each team that you're on, if you go off statistics, two or three, I guess, depending on how you want to round up, 2 or 3 of the guys on each team are going to make it to the big leagues. The rest of the team is not. So it's kind of a startling thing to think about when there's 25 guys on the roster and 2 of them are going to make it to the big
Fewer
leagues.
than 10%.
Yep.
It's kind of amazing still thinking about it then that you made it undrafted. Again, not undrafted due to talent, but that pedigree can work against you. And you've seen it still. Jeff Manship is pitching in relief for the Cleveland Indians right now and crushing it.
I know, good for him.
That was the guy. I was wondering I was going to ask if you'd been keeping up with him. He's got like a 1.27 ERA, and he's hung in there. He's obviously had his opportunities, and to his credit, finally taking advantage of him as a full-time reliever. But it's amazing how that works out too.
Well, and the other thing that's kind of funny, if you look at the team, my first year team, how many guys actually made it to the big leagues on that team? There was me, Chris Parmalee, Joe Benson, Jeff Manship, Matt Fox, Alex Burnett, Anthony Slamma, Rob Delaney, and I might be Danny Valencia. So we had, and I might be forgetting Wilson Ramos.
Wow.
We had 10 guys on my first year team that ended up making it, and I might be forgetting 1 or 2 of those. But so we had, let's just say 10 or 11 guys on my first year team that ended up making it to the big league. So you can kind of look at that and how
you guys were an anomaly.
Oh yeah, big time. And we just dominated the Midwest League that year and did the same thing in the Florida State League, and then we all did pretty well coming up.
Yeah. So we had talked about this back at Buca, probably first or second show, but you had gotten a decent signing bonus for an undrafted player, but you had bargained that in the sense that you knew you weren't going to make any money in the minor leagues. How did that spreading out the bonus work for you in the sense of being able to make it on your own as an early 20-something out on your own for the first time?
Yeah, it definitely helped.
You were still wearing big chains and gaudy.
Oh God, I was nowhere even remotely close to that. The only thing I did with my money is I went out and bought myself a really nice watch, kind of just as a, hey, congratulations to me kind of thing.
Now make sure you're on time everywhere you go.
Yeah, right. So that was really kind of the only thing I went out and purchased. Outside of that, basically all my other money was kind of slowly used on living expenses in season and off season. Luckily, my parents are and were in a financial position to help me out throughout that, and I was living at home in the off season. They were picking up pretty much all of my bills in the off season, and in season, rent and stuff like that was on me. But if I didn't have that help from them, my signing bonus would have gone probably twice as fast, and who knows if I would have been able to hang around for the 5 years that I did in order to get my chance at getting called up. And some of the guys who signed for $1,000, $500, just kind of like the minimum signing bonuses, I honestly have no idea how they're able to stick it out if they don't have any family help.
You ever still wear that watch?
Oh yeah, definitely.
What kind is it?
It's a Bentley Edition Breitling.
Oh man, that sounds sick.
It's pretty nice. I like it.
So obviously there's the haves and the have-nots in the minor leagues, and it doesn't take anybody too terribly bright to figure out what I'm talking about, and that's just, there's the guys that signed for a lot less or didn't have the high draft position. And you'd mentioned actually an interesting name a couple times now, Chris Parmalee, first-round pick back in, I want to say 2006. How are things different for guys like that in the minors than for guys like you or beneath you in terms of financial ramifications. I think he probably had maybe a $2 million signing bonus.
He was probably right around. I think he was upper ones.
Yeah, because he was just like 20 something overall.
Yeah,
I think.
So probably upper ones. The thing that just drives me absolutely nuts about guys like that, and I can completely see where they get that money and they should blah blah blah, but with those 2 paychecks that he got, because what they do is they split your signing bonus up into 2 paychecks. Your first one, I think you get 45 days after you sign or something like that, and the next one you get another 30 or 60 days after that. He made more money with his signing bonus than I did in my whole baseball career, and that's with counting a full year of service time in the big leagues and those 2 seasons. All the money I made throughout my 7 years of playing ball, he made more in that one day. And so it's kind of one of those things where you kind of have a hard time that someone who hasn't proven anything, they get these massive signing bonuses, but I get it. And with guys like that, the road is it's not mentally easier, but financially it's so much easier because he has that money where he can live a normal life and be spending $30,000-$40,000 just on living expenses.
Well, he can also eat like lean chicken breast and green beans, and you're eating like McDonald's or
and so many guys I know I know a number of guys that would just eat peanut butter sandwiches basically every meal because it's the absolute cheapest thing that you can put together
and fill up on.
Yeah, and so he can live a normal life, and then also you're going to get so many more chances being a first, second, third round draft pick than you are someone who's a later pick, or someone like me who I was undrafted, but I ended up signing with about an 8th, 9th round signing bonus. But still, those guys that are the top round picks get so many more opportunities, and the road can be so much easier for those guys.
Well, I think it's like the carpool lane versus maybe gravel for everyone else. And I mean, again, it's not unfair because they put in the work and they had that pedigree. But at the same time, it's the reason why Parmalee lasted in the organization longer than Chris Colabello. When you look at the players, you're like, I don't really see a difference here. Neither can really play the outfield. Neither can really hit. Parmalee's obviously taken in one direction, and Colabello now playing regularly for the Blue Jays is taken in another. It's just kind of amazing that human beings can be valued in such different ways, and that the split isn't so gradual. Like, I'm surprised there isn't more infighting or like shady stuff going on when the difference between AAA and big leagues, literally a sliver talent-wise, financially is such a gorge, basically, or a chasm. It's just huge.
Oh, yeah.
Like, you'd think men being competitive and wanting to reach that highest peak would probably stoop to different means. And maybe that's why PEDs are as big of a deal as they are. I don't think the PEDs necessarily are big for stars, but for guys that are just trying to make it.
Yeah, and I mean, I think I would be completely lying if I said that it's not it's something that definitely crosses your mind when you know that someone is going to get called up before you, but you sit there and you're always thinking, what can I do to be better than them? Or, this is a terrible way of putting it, but it's the other way that you got to think about things. Also, if they're on the DL, you're getting called up.
I was wondering if in a moment of weakness, you'd find yourself wondering, man, if this guy gets hurt, I hope this guy gets hurt, but what if this guy gets hurt?
You're always thinking about that. And because the financial reward is so significant, just to get called up for a couple days, a week, a couple months, compared to what you're making. And so if that doesn't cross through your mind to some extent, I think you are a far brighter person than myself, and I would say 99.9% of people out there.
Yeah, that's accurate. You did tell me off the air a really funny story about a guy who's actually the number 1 starter on the number 2 team in the National League. Your Arizona Fall League teammate, Garrett Cole, big bonus, $8 million from the Pittsburgh Pirates when he went number 1 overall out of UCLA back in 2011. Fill us in with what exactly happened when he kind of called you over with a humble brag that turned out that he was actually crushed.
So we were sitting in the clubhouse, and all of us know when paydays are coming from signing bonuses and stuff like that, and he had just signed. And so while we were in the Fall League, he got his first half of his signing bonus. So they split it into 2 checks. First check, pre-tax amount was $4 million. I mean, unbelievably ridiculous. And so we all knew that it was there because it comes in this big envelope and it's certified, signed. I mean, obviously because of what's in there.
Like some Publishers Clearinghouse business or something.
Well, and the check is actually a larger check than normal. I mean, it's literally probably about half or 2/3 the size of a 8x11 piece of paper. So it's a big check. And
literally and figuratively.
Yeah. And so we all saw that sitting in his locker. And so he got there a little bit later than all of us. And we were all waiting for that thing to show up because breakfast the next day was definitely on him for the clubhouse. So he gets that. He busts that thing open. And my locker just, 2-3 lockers away from him. And me and him would sit in the stands and do charting every couple days because of the rotation. So we knew each other decently well. And he sat there and he opens it up and he's just staring at it. And I'm kind of glancing at him on the side of my eye. And he goes, "Hey, Cole, come here." I walk over there. I'm like, "Yeah, what's up?" And he's like, "Is this right?" And he's got his check and he's kind of sitting in his locker looking at it. And it's a check, I don't remember the exact amount, for something right around $1.5, $1.7 million. Just a ridiculous amount of money. And I sat there and go, "Well, what are you wondering about?" And he's like, "Is this the right amount of money that I should have been getting?" And I was like, "Okay, well, what was your bonus?" And he's like, $8 million. Okay. And I say, "All right, so this should have been a $4 million check. Are you still a California resident? Because signing bonuses, you're going to get taxed at 50% initially." And I'm like, "Are you still a California resident?" And he goes, "Yeah." I'm like, "Ooh." All right. Well, you can probably at least add another 10-15% on your tax rate. And so I did the quick, breakdown, and
name of the show.
Oh, there we go. I didn't even know about that. And so he ended up getting taxed at 65% rate, which came out to be right around that 1.5, 1.7. It was something right around there. And I said, "Yeah, that's right." And I patted him on the back and I said, "Well, buddy, welcome to the Republican Party." And I walked away. So,
oh man, no, that's your heart just sinks. It's still more money than I'll ever see in my life combined. It's still more than a lot of guys in
a lot
that
of people
make
in the world. Well,
so I mean, it's you don't feel bad. It's like when you say, "Oh, guy needs to make more money." Well, he makes enough. He makes way more than I do. No, it's like, it's got to kind of crush a young guy to have high expectations and have that happen. Back to the debate a little bit. Todd Van Steensel, a guy, an Australian pitcher who spent the full season at Fort Myers, had written an article about basically owing money at the end of the day to a teammate, Brandon Peterson. He borrowed from a reliever friend of his, and he had a picture of his wallet and he had all these bills in there. He's like, "Man, I feel rich." Takes him out, it's 8 single dollar bills. Like that's the entire amount of his net value. What I want to ask you, Cole, as someone who's lived it, what can teams do reasonably within that? Now, I think there's teams, the Dodgers under the guise of Gabe Kapler, who's big on nutrition, trying to get those players better fed in the Dodger system. I think he's the farm director over with the Dodgers right now. In addition to food, lodging, it's a drop in the bucket for a team to just throw $1 million at the problem and fix it, but that hasn't happened. And no team has taken that competitive advantage step. Why do you think that is? And what can teams reasonably do to improve it? Because, I mean, honestly, this is their future. Why are teams not just dropping a little more money into it rather than, signing that fourth utility infielder or something like that?
To go off one of the things that you just talked about the throw $1 million at the problem. A couple of guys on one of the teams I was playing, they actually sat down and calculated out. And if the front office or just even one of the guys on the big league team took $1 million, you could double everyone's pay in the minor leagues for that season. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, it's kind of one of those things that I think is really ridiculous because $1 million to a Major League Baseball team is a drop in the bucket. And
It's Joe Mauer when you're out looking at Bentleys and you shake the money out of his pockets.
Oh, pretty much, yeah.
Exactly. But anyway, that's a different story for another day.
Yeah.
But so it's nothing to big league teams.
No, and so I think kind of the reason why it hasn't happened is because no one has started the movement, and baseball is such a good old boys club, and everything progresses so slowly within baseball. And I don't know why that is, but I think it's just kind of the culmination, and nothing has happened as a catalyst to really get it going. I know a little while ago, maybe a year or so ago, there was a class action lawsuit. Or I don't know if it got to the level of class action, but there was someone brought up a lawsuit against either the MLB or whatever team they were playing.
For not paying minimum wage, wasn't it?
Yeah, and we calculated that out too, that when we were playing, if you count travel time, time that we're at the field, and then actually game time, we were making, I think it was $1 or right under $1 an hour while you're in the minor leagues. And that was at low A pay.
And that's not, you weren't also considering workouts either, I suppose, or keeping yourself in shape outside the season.
No, this was just travel time and time that you're at the field.
That's the in-season grind right there. The other thing, I had read an article on Baseball Prospectus, and one guy had floated the idea, this is beyond hiring chefs to feed these young athletes that need the nutrition, but buying apartment buildings nearby, renovating them, and turning them into places for players to live, building team camaraderie, and besides that, having everybody together so you can keep an eye on them, make sure they're in at a reasonable hour, or at least giving them advice and that kind of thing. What do you think of that?
I think that's good and a bad idea. I think it's a good idea because I think the teams, if you're paying your players such an unbelievably low amount, you better be paying for their housing, and you better be picking up every single one of their meals. I mean, that's the only way that this situation starts to come out to being fair.
Yep.
The thing that I don't like about the apartment thing is that the team already has enough control over you throughout the season. Mm-hmm. This is just another aspect of them to have more control over you, and I don't really like that.
That makes sense.
And then the other thing is, too, you already spend the vast majority of the hours of the day with all of these guys. So now you're living with all of these guys, or you're in the basic vicinity of all of them. I just feel like a lot of little squabbles will get kind of started up just as brothers do, because you're spending so much time together. And so there are things like that I think the teams should do, but getting to the point of making sure that you're in early. Not all of them, well, I mean, everyone who's playing professional baseball is at least 18 years old and technically considered an adult. This is a time where you need to take it upon yourself, whether you're just going to have fun or you're going to actually try to turn this into your career. And I don't think that this is something a major league team should be deciding what time you're in. That is not their job.
Sure.
It's your job, and you either are an adult or you need to become an adult real quick, and you need to take that upon yourself.
That's a good point. If you want to live with guys, it should be on your own volition and not forced upon you by the team. So that'll wrap up. That's a good discussion, I thought, for the second segment. We'll come back for the third. We've got a whole bunch of listener-submitted questions we'll try to get to before our hour is up. You're listening to The Breakdown on the Alive and Social Network.
Hey everybody, my name is Joan Vorderbruggen, and I want you to tune into my new weekly podcast, Joan of Art, on the Alive and Social Network. Each week on Joan of Art, we will interview some of the most talented artists from across the Twin Cities. I'm talking painters, costume designers, filmmakers, poets. There's going to be something for everybody. You won't believe some of the things people are making.
598,000 light brights.
Tacumba created the world's largest light bright.
Right.
So I know that there's a piece that you're working on.
It's called How to Have Fun in a Civil War. A friend of mine is like, you're bringing Civil War to the state fair.
You can find the Joan of Art podcast at www.aliveandsocial.com or look on Facebook for Joan of Art podcast. Tune in weekly to Joan of Art as we investigate and celebrate people who make art.
All right, a little bit of Stones to bring us into the third segment, your Cold of Resubmitted musical selection of the week. Maybe we'll start doing that. Maybe we'll do a little my music, your music, and maybe people can vote and see which they like better. I think you'll probably get the benefit of the doubt with the Stones, deservedly so. I don't even know who who produced the Four Horsemen theme song. But I think if I got Ric Flair in my corner, how can you lose?
Oh God, that dude is the man.
Yeah, I know.
Back in the 80s.
Back in the 80s, he's still trying to keep going now in his 80s. Not literally, I'm just kidding. He kind of looks like it, though. But anyway, so we come into the third segment. We like to do a little thing with listener-submitted questions. I came up with a couple of my own, too, so you'll just have to decide which you think are mine and which are others submitted by our listeners. And if you want to,
all right.
Yep. And if you want to submit questions to us, feel free to do that through me at Brandon_Warren on Twitter, at the Cole DeVries on the Twitter machine as well, or however you can get a hold of us. I'm easily accessible on Facebook. If you see me and want to ask a question, just let us know. My first question, and this is because it's one of your big league buddies still hanging in there. I want to know: do you think Drew Butera could be a league average big league reliever if he converted? Because he throws gas. He absolutely. He came in and threw. Was he with the Twins when he pitched that inning? He's pitched, I think, a couple times. Yeah. But anyway, do you think?
And I think he did once in AAA also when we were playing together.
So do you think he could be an average big league reliever if he made the full-time conversion?
If his secondary pitches can become average major league secondary pitches and his control wasn't absolutely ridiculous. Yeah, I mean, because I think the game that he pitched that I was at, I mean, he was sitting like 90-92. So, and that was his first or second time ever doing it in his career. So, I mean, you think about it, if he has some time to practice, he can maybe bump that up to 94, maybe even a 95.
Yeah, Pitch Effects had him averaging 90 roughly with the Twins. And that's again, there's high end and low end. It just kind of converges in the middle. For a guy that's not practicing that regular, that's pretty sick. So you've seen obviously conversions from guys like Kenley Jansen, the star closer for the Dodgers. Sergio Santos, who was in the Twins system as a shortstop. Did you ever play with Sergio Santos? He might have been a little bit higher up.
I don't remember him.
He ended up being a pretty good closer for, I think, the White Sox for a little while. It's not unprecedented that guys can make that change. So I don't know. I just thought that'd be a fun question because I know you and Drew, I don't know if you go way back, but you definitely have a history there.
Yeah, I like Drew a lot.
Here's the next one. Hi, Cole, longtime listener, first-time caller. Can you please tell me what it's like to destroy a six-figure machine, including cents, in less than 30 seconds, please? That comes from Dan at the Minnesota State Fairgrounds. I don't think Dan's still at the fairgrounds. That's just
no, he's not.
I think he's in New York City, actually, watching the U.S. Open, if I'm not mistaken.
He is, and so this is Dan Edwards. He is the former sports producer at KARE 11, and that's kind of where I got to know him pretty well. And now I'm helping him with his new business venture, which is AirViews. It's something we've talked about on here before, where they have it's a website with drone-based content and video.
Cool as heck, by the way.
Yeah, and so what I'm helping them do is a series of baseball instructional videos, and then we're also going to do some home remodeling ones also later on. And so for being part of their organization, programming, whatever, they gave me a drone, and the one that they gave me retails for, I think, like $1,100.
So including cents.
Yep, so that's where he's getting it. And I was at the state fair kind of getting some video of the cleanup because he texted me. He's like, hey, man, it'd probably be pretty cool if you get some cool shots of the cleanup, this and that. So I'm there videoing, and it was kind of windy that day, and I went to try and pan this one building, and I was too close, so then I was going to bring it back, but I backed the drone up. I knew I was getting close to a tree branch, and so I'm kind of in the shade so I can see my screen on my remote, and I bring it back, and I'm like, I'm not really seeing it, and I kind of peer out, and all of a sudden I hear, and it hit a tree branch and fell from about 20 or 30 feet up and completely destroyed the camera, the two legs to land on, the lights underneath, those came popping off. And so, yeah, I did a pretty good job of destroying it. So we're still seeing if we can get the footage of it, because I think that would be kind of interesting just to see that thing crashing out of the air. But who knows if we'll be able to, or if the card took too big of an impact and accidentally surged and kind of blew out that file. Who knows? We're trying to get it.
So definitely one of those. Besides that, how did you enjoy the play, Mrs. Lincoln kind of situations? Like, oh yeah, if I totally obliterated my drone, no big deal. But yeah, so I want to see that video. I think it'd be kind of fun to share with people too if they can recover that. But it sounds like it's a recovery mission at this point.
Definitely.
This one's for me. Top 3 artists on your iPod or iPad or iPhone, whatever you, Spotify, Apple Music. I'm just going down the list here.
Now,
what are the top 3?
Are we doing history? If I click on number of plays and it pops up?
Freestyle. You decide. For me, right now, Childish Gambino, Run the Jewels, and probably Kanye, because I can't quit him. No matter how crazy he gets, I feel like his music gets better the crazier he gets.
That's usually what happens.
Those are my 3 acts right now. All basically hip hop and rap. That's where I'm at mentally right now. And so, I mean, if you were to go history wise, I'd be Outkast, Red Hot Chili Peppers, and then I don't know who the third one would be. Probably something stupid. So I don't want to talk about it. But so those would be my lists. What are your lists?
I think if we go on my history of plays, I think number 1 might be Kid Rock Cowboy.
Oh, you know what? That was on my baseball playlist this summer, and I could not believe that and Bawa to Ba still got me like amped up for baseball.
They're both awesome.
They came out like 16, 17 years ago.
Right. So I think that one's probably number 1. Drake and Lil Wayne, The Motto, might be number 2.
I haven't gotten into Drake. I can't do that. Maybe I might have to now because I've been getting a lot of recommendations, but I just can't do Drake.
And then I think my number 3 is Justin Bieber, Boyfriend. Aaron, don't be laughing over there at me, all right?
I'm just a little surprised.
But I mean, it's such a good song. And I love Justin Timberlake, and he modeled that song after JT's Justified album, and it hits home with me. Really does.
I can't hate on Justin Timberlake just like I can't hate on Bruno Mars. Talent wins, man. Talent wins. So no complaints there. Aaron actually had a question about the Rookie of the Year award. If you want to throw at the picture here,
I just want to know, you guys think Sano's catching Correa for Rookie of the Year?
Boy, that's a tough one, and I think the Rookie of the Year is such a weird category because it always comes down to who did the best that was on the team that did the best. There's never a Rookie of the Year or Cy Young winner, whether it's deserved or not, on the worst team in baseball.
Not usually.
Yeah,
and that's the weird thing is those teams usually have a lot of rookies,
right? And
like the '99 Twins.
Yeah, no
They're
kidding.
horrible, and they had like 20 rookies that year.
So it's one of those things. I think he's catching up with them, but the fact that Sano is at the end of the season going to be up there for 2/3,
or I think it was
right
like July,
there?
probably half.
Okay, so half. So I
300 plate appearances maybe by the end.
I don't know if that's going to be a big enough selection for them to sit there and say, yes, this guy was up long enough for us to give him the Rookie of the Year, but he's definitely making a case for himself right now.
For me, it's the Liriano effect. The year that Liriano was a rookie, 2006, he was clearly better than this other schmuck that ended up winning it. Do you remember Justin Verlander?
Oh, yeah.
No,
Who's that?
I remember just being pissed, though, because that was when WAR and wins above replacement, WARP for Baseball Prospectus, became a thing, and they could see who had more value regardless of how long you had played. And Liriano's number was still just off the charts compared to Verlander, and they're like, well, nope, Verlander helped him more because he was there all season long, and it's like the difference between quality and quantity, and I'm just like stewing, and never mind the fact that I was 20 years old and didn't have really good outlets to vent my anger, and Twitter mercifully didn't exist yet. But I think that's what's going to happen here too. Is there's actually, I think, 2, maybe 3 rookies that have a little more substantive playing time. It's another shortstop, Francisco Lindor, who's been hitting for Cleveland. Sick defensively. He's a better defender than Correa. Probably not a better hitter, but when you look at all-around player, there's that argument. Sano, obviously not playing defense, hurts him, but he's just freaking mashing. And then Lance McCullers, the right-hander that the Twins faced in this last series. I don't think they faced him twice, but I know they definitely faced him at least once. he was a guy that was actually, he came through Minnesota with the U18 USA team with Lindor, in fact, and played the Minnetonka Millers in 2009. And I had the privilege to call that game. There were some crazy players. And Lindor, as like a 17-year-old, was the best shortstop I had ever seen defensively. And I'm not kidding. Wow. I had seen a million big league games to that point, and Lindor was the best. I mean, just watching play infield was a work of art. So, I don't know. I want to say Sano can do it. If he hits 25 home runs, which would be, 9 more by the end of the month? Again, not likely, but holy smokes, what about what he's doing is likely? I'd have to think about it. Let's see. Weirdest food that you enjoy regularly and the weirdest food that you've ever enjoyed.
Oh, what I enjoy regularly.
I had pickled herring today. I don't know if that's that weird, but my wife hates it. So when I buy it, it's like totally taking my life into my own hands.
I'm not really that big a fan of pickled herring. I guess
that's it. You're off.
Yeah, right.
You're out of here.
See you later.
You're out of here.
There aren't really that many weird foods.
You are a foodie, though. You were telling me when we were listening to the BT and Lydia foodie promo that you are a foodie. I try to be one, but it's expensive to be a foodie.
It is, and where my kind of food adventures more come in is trying local fare.
Like when you're traveling?
On my travels.
Yeah.
And so that's kind of really where it comes in. So some of the weird ones that I've had abroad
Are you like an Andrew Zimmern? Are you that crazy, or are you just still pretty tame?
No, I mean, like, I'll try some. I always try to find episodes if I'm going to a place that he's been to, and so I can see if I can try the same things. So I've had a scorpion. I had that in London. That was kind of weird. My mouth started tingling afterwards.
Before or after you played in the fall league? Must have been after you played in the fall league.
I'm trying to remember.
Because the scorpion would be like,
yeah.
And then you start seeing him like, lunch.
I don't remember
Maybe
if it was
not
before or
quite.
after. It was probably before. So there's that. Let's see. I had fugu when I was in Japan.
What is that?
So that's a puffer fish where if they don't prepare it properly, it will kill
poison.
you.
Yeah.
Yep, it'll kill you. And so that one, it was kind of funny because you kind of feel a little bit drunk after eating from the residual toxins.
I can dig it.
I had shark fin soup. That was weird. I didn't really like that much. I don't really care to eat cartilage. What were some of the other? I know I've had some other weird ones. I've had some like brains and stuff like that. I'll have to. Oh, I had cuy or guinea pig when I was in Peru.
Yikes!
That one's kind of weird. Actually, it tasted I can't remember if it was the front or the back half. The front half tasted like chicken, and the back half tasted like duck. Or that's what I thought.
So trippy. That's so trippy.
And this guinea pig, because it's kind of a specialty over there, I think costs $25, and there's maybe an ounce of meat on this animal, so it's kind of ridiculous. When I was also in Japan, it was a twist ice cream cone, but it was sweet potato and green tea ice cream.
I had green tea ice cream at Benihana on my 19th birthday or my 20th birthday. So I've had that, but sweet potatoes.
It was actually kind of good. And they've got this other dessert that they put these like fermented beans in Japan. And that stuff's kind of weird. I don't remember what it's called, but I don't like that one too much.
Oh, this guy's definitely miles ahead of me when it comes to culinary stuff. Prediction for Steelers-Patriots tonight. One word. Pain.
All right.
All right, moving on. What would you do at catcher next year?
Ooh, that is a tough one. I think
AJ Pierzynski is a free agent. You could put 2 in the 2, or Brian Pena from the Reds, a pretty decent catcher, left-handed hitter. Or do you go with Zook by himself 1 more year, but try not to let the option vest for the 3rd year? Or do you go big? Matt Wieters, who will be a free agent in the offseason and probably not headed back to Baltimore.
I really like the Wieters option.
Me too.
I don't know if the Twins are going to want to spend the money that's going to take to get him, especially considering that what's Kurt going to make next year?
$6 million. And he's got a vesting option, but it won't vest if he's not starting regularly for the next year for another $6 million.
Yeah, so I just don't see them going out and getting Wieters when they still have Suzuki. And boy, I think it's a tough call. I honestly have no idea what they're going to do. I would love to see them go on and get like a Matt Wieters, but I just don't think they're going to, especially since they have Kurt signed up for such a big contract for next year.
The issue is they don't really have a lot of positions to address. So if they do drop significant money into the team, I don't think you should do it in relievers because their bullpen will get better by virtue of young guys. So it's either shortstop or catcher. Eduardo Escobar has come on to the point where I might feel comfortable letting him be the shortstop next year. You're not going to go out and get an Ian Desmond who struggled with the Nationals this year. So maybe you drop money into the catching position. Best opponent you faced in college, hitter and pitcher. Anybody come to mind?
I faced Buster Posey at Florida State.
And how nasty was he?
Honestly, everyone was talking about him, and I'm probably that was my junior year, so that was the year I absolutely tore it up in college, and that was my first outing of the season, and it was absolutely abysmal. So I may have walked him, and that was the time when he was playing shortstop, and
that's mind blowing to think about,
right? And I don't remember him, and I've always been pretty critical of other players who are supposed to be big time prospects that I played against, but I don't remember him doing anything that unbelievable. And I could be completely way off base, and someone pulls up the stats and writes in and was like, "Oh, Coley hit 20 RBIs for that weekend, this and that," but I just don't remember anything that was that big of a deal. So
that makes sense. And then pitcher, did you face anybody really amazing in the Big Ten or elsewhere? You did say you faced Kurt Suzuki with Cal State Fullerton.
No, I didn't. My roommate did.
But he was sick back then too. Suzuki was an amazing college player.
Pitcher, let's see. I pitched against Smarja when he was at Notre Dame, and I dominated them, and we dominated him. My first outing in college, I came in. This is going to be kind of funny, in relief for Glenn Perkins, and we were pitching against Joba Chamberlain that day
in Nebraska.
Yeah, and so Nebraska was, I think, a top 10 or top 15 team at that point. Glenn shut him out for 6 innings, and then I came in and shut him out for 3. So
did you get to save?
Yes, I did.
Nicely done. Dream car. I was showing you there's a Chevy Colorado at Miller Chev up in Rogers that I would love to have, more money than I could afford. Honestly, would be my dream car. I know how silly that sounds, not to have like a Ferrari or something, but I just want to pick up. What would you like?
Well, are we going practical dream car that I actually see myself being able to purchase someday? Or are we going dream car?
Well, go wherever you're.
Okay, well then I have to go dream. 2 of them. One, a Bugatti Veyron. That's probably one of them, and these cars evolve all the time. And then the other one, that is a half or third the price, depending on which one you buy. The Lamborghini Aventador. I've always been a Lamborghini guy. And so at any point during my life, that is one of my stamped in stone goals, is to be able to buy a Lamborghini.
How about something sensible?
Sensible? I really like the BMW M4, I really like that car. The Maseratis, love those.
This is sensible for this guy. I'm thinking like I want a Cadillac CTS or something with black rims, black car, black rims, all black, just kind of low profile, whatever.
Well, the Maserati is probably in between the, realistic dream car and dream car, and so that was kind of verging the gap there. But
well,
what do you know?
That's true. And we're coming down the stretch here. Just got a couple more. Actually, getting back to the Twins related stuff. Joe Chupik, I believe, works with the network, wants to know why not Barrios, not even in the bullpen, and do you think Torrey Hunter will be back next year? Now, the Torrey Hunter thing, that's what leads me to believe maybe A.J. Pierzynski in a platoon with Suzuki. Pierzynski will be 40. He'll be cheap, and he's left-handed hitter. Suzuki hits right-handed. Pretty nice little matchup there.
Yeah, not bad.
And then as far as Barrios, so I think Torrey will be back as the 4th outfielder because you've got all 3 guys that can play center that will be starting. As far as Barrios, for me, it was just they didn't want to wreck their prized prospect. In fact, Jeff Passan, a really great writer for Yahoo Sports, had this to say about Barrios. Next season, the Twins will finally get the power arm they've been missing since the days of Johan Santana and Francisco Liriano. Do you feel left out in that sentence, sir?
Oh, always.
But anyway,
yeah, right.
I don't think they want to rush an arm that they believe that much in.
No, they're most certainly not going to do that. And the other thing that they're not going to do is they're not going to take someone who they see being a starting pitcher for his whole career,
right?
And just to bring them up, stick them in the bullpen.
No, he could help this bullpen right now, no question about it.
Yeah, but they don't want him to switch up his mentality and kind of all of the mental switches that need to happen from going as a starting pitcher to a bullpen. So they're just not going to do that.
And help isn't help in a vacuum. Is Jose Barrios a better reliever than Blaine Boyer right now? There's a good chance, but it's not. Do you start his service clock? Do you start everything? And do you add more innings to a frame that's not really built to ramp it up quickly?
Well, and I think the other big thing that they don't want to have happen is they don't want to call him up and him be in a bullpen role, something that he's not used to pitching in, and get absolutely hit all over the
There's
field.
no guarantee he'd be a great reliever.
Yeah, and then it just destroys his confidence. Then when he does get called up next year, he's questioning the whole time whether he can pitch at this level, and it's just something that you don't want to do.
Perfect. And then the last series of questions, actually, I don't know how you say this name, if it's Jaris Tinklenberg or Yaris. Yaris sounds nice with the soft J, but
There we go.
He wants to know, did Mike Pelfrey pitch well enough for another start yesterday? Part 1. Part 2, who do you want starting a wild card game? And Part 3, what's wrong with Trevor Plouffe? I don't think there's anything wrong with Trevor Plouffe, so we'll just skip that one.
All right.
What did Pelfrey pitch well enough for you to give him another start?
I thought he pitched well. I would like to see him go a little bit deeper in the game. 5 1/3 innings is, the benchmark is always trying to get to that 6. 5 1/3 is more than good enough, especially when you have the depth of the bullpen that they have right now with all the September call-ups. So, yeah, I mean, you got to give him another start. Who else are you going to throw into that spot at this point?
Logan Darnell is about the only chance.
And Logan's been sitting out there in the pen for...
He made a start on Thursday.
Okay, so he's still...
It was either Pelf started Thursday, Darnell started Friday, or vice versa.
Okay, so he's still ramped up. So you could, but you're not going to make that switch. Logan's had...
To be fair, he's kind of a fringy lefty, too.
Yeah,
it's not like he's guaranteed to be better than Pelf.
And he's had mediocre success at best in the big leagues. And, Pelf's been up there for, 6 years?
Yeah, the big reason the people want Darnell to go is because of how good he was down the stretch for Rochester, like a .85 ERA in his last 5 starts. But
ridiculous.
That's AAA. It worked for Tommy Malone, which is fine, whatever. For me, the issue with Pelfrey is the gap between control and command. He doesn't walk anybody, really. His control is fine. The command just is not there. He does not put pitches where he wants to. So he misses within the strike zone. Not a big deal, but that's why he doesn't strike a lot of guys out. I still think, and I want to be on the record in every place that I am, that he's going to make a fantastic reliever for whoever can talk him into it. And I know.
I think that's going to be tough to talk him into.
People are sick of hearing it, and I know it. But I think he stays in rotation until Phil Hughes comes back. I think he's the guy you bounce when Phil Hughes comes back, though. Unless Duffy reaches that innings limit because they skipped him this last start with this day off. If Duffy reaches some innings limit we don't know about yet, I think Hughes could bump Pelfrey. Now, wild card game, as we come to an end here, who do you want starting it for the Twins if they make it? And it cannot be Irvin Santana, keep in mind.
Yep. I'm going to go with Gibby. I think he's been by far the most consistent pitcher throughout the season.
He showed a lot of guts, gave up 4 runs in the first inning.
That was an unbelievable start, by the way. I thought he was going to be done in that first inning.
Darnell warmed up.
Yeah, and you even heard Molly talking in the press conference. He was 1 pitch away from basically being out there, and then he comes back and eats up 7 more innings for them. Kudos to you.
Yep, that's huge. I think he's the guy that keeps you in it. And it's going to depend on who they play. If they play the Yankees at Yankee Stadium, do you want Phil Hughes back there, who could easily give you 7 shutout innings or could give up 3 home runs in the first inning and be done? The issue is you got to take the guy that gives you the best chance to win that game. So it's Kyle Gibson for me. Tommy Malone's in the discussion.
I think he's the backup.
He's been much better of late, but I think you got to go with Gibby.
Definitely.
So that's the wrap. That's our final word. I'm going with Kyle Gibson. You're going with Kyle Gibson for game 1. Well, not game. I keep saying game 163, but it's just a wild card.
Game 1 of 1 for the wild card.
So that's it for episode number 8. Thanks for joining us on the breakdown. Catch us next week. If you got any ideas of things you want to hear us talk about, send them because we're running out of stuff. No, I'm just kidding. No, thanks for joining us.